Welcome back to the Doctor Interested webinar series. We're so happy you could all join us. I know the time shift just happened from daylight savings time, so either it's really early morning or really late in the day for some of you. But we're very excited you can all join us. Just a little bit of housekeeping. If you're comfortable, please have your cameras on so that we can make a better community space. Please remain muted unless you're speaking. It makes it easier for everyone to hear the speaker. And stay engaged through the chat or by raising your hand. We would also like to take the time to acknowledge that this event is being organized in Mississauga, Ontario, which is situated on the traditional and treaty territories of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation, and that as we gather virtually, we encourage all of our participants to reflect on the lands they join from and to recognize the enduring presence and contributions of the Indigenous people across Turtle Island and the world. With that, I'm very proud to introduce our speaker today, Saul. He is a senior studying computer science at the University of Colorado Boulder and an advocate for digital wellness. After struggling with social media and constant digital distractions, he began a journey of digital detox and intentional living. The shift improved his mental health, focus, and relationships. Now he's using his experience to create a screen time app that helps people build healthier digital habits. As a part of the NoSo, which is the No Social Media November, public speaking team, Saul shares his story to inspire students to reconnect with life online. We have partnered with No Social Media November to deal with this webinar, and we're so grateful Saul can join us. He'll share the connection between mental health and social media and a little bit more about what NoSo is. So with that, Saul.
Awesome. Thank you so much for the introduction. I'm really excited to be here and sort of share my story. So, again, I'm a senior at Colorado Boulder studying computer science. I love to ski. I play hockey too. That's a picture of me and my family at my sister's graduation. And then also, I'm just super passionate about sharing my experience offline and also just teaching people how to create healthier relationships with technology. And my story starts as early as I can remember in elementary school. I remember watching the TV and scrolling on my parents' iPad and just how mesmerizing it was. I could really lose myself and spend hours at a time without having to worry about anything else that was going around me. In middle school, I ended up downloading social media apps for the first time, and it was very interesting and it felt super harmless. I could connect with my friends way easier than I had ever been able to do before and share funny videos and see funny things. And it was really great until high school when I think this relationship got a little bit darker. If you could move forward on the slides, I do. In high school, I ended up downloading TikTok, and I spent so much time on TikTok. I could really feel that there was something powerful behind it that was driving me to spend more and more time on it. And I ended up spending so much time on TikTok that I actually burned the home screen icon into the display of my screen. And I realized that it was horrible for me. I was losing so much time and my attention was being shredded apart. So I deleted TikTok. However, the dependency that I had on technology didn't disappear. And I ended up just going on Instagram Reels and YouTube Shorts instead to spend my time. And eventually, in sophomore year of college, this turned into the darkest moment that I had ever experienced. I didn't want to leave my room. I hated being with myself. Um, I could hardly focus. I took me 3 hours to fall asleep every single night. I treated other people poorly. I deteriorated social skills, severe anxiety, and definitely a little bit of depression in that moment too. And I remember sitting in my room and had all my lights off, and I'm just staring at my phone, scrolling and scrolling and scrolling. And I just can't seem to peel myself off of the screen of my device. And I realized that if I kept going in this direction, it probably wasn't going to end up good for me. I really didn't feel healthy at all, or okay with myself. And I wanted to make a difference. And for 3 months, I
Sorry, I just muted everyone because someone else's mic was unmuted. Yeah, so if you could just unmute again.
Okay, perfect. And so I spent 3 months trying to figure out how to solve that problem. And I did everything I could from going cold turkey and detoxing fully. And then I ended up relapsing a few times and getting right back to where I was with the habits that I had before. And after that 3 months, I had figured out a way for myself to actually get to that point. And what happened was absolutely life-changing. When I got down to having 0 minutes spent on social media a day and doing a full detox, every single one of those problems that I had before that I was just explaining on the last slide had completely disappeared. My severe anxiety went away. I had no more depression. My focus, my attention, my concentration span had all deepened. The relationships that I had with everyone around me were so much more genuine. And for the first time ever, I experienced this new drive and this new willpower to live. And for me, this was such a powerful experience that I really wanted other people to understand what I was also going through. So ever since then, 2 years ago, I started developing Dopamine, which is this app that I've created that I think solves a lot of these problems that I was dealing with. And I was on my own, so motivated to do this, so passionate about this problem. However, it started to get a little bit lonely and isolating in itself, just not really being able to communicate or talk with anyone that also understood this problem. And so that's why I reached out to Nosa November and Maddie on the next slide. So Maddie is also very passionate about improving students' well-beings and mental health and helping them build healthy relationships with technology. Maddie ended up going through a suicide epidemic at her high school. And it's just such a very frightening thing. And she wanted to build NOSO to help patch that problem and to figure out how to actually help people get through this thing that we've all experienced. And so on the next slide, we'll talk about what the problem is exactly. And so students are spending upwards of 7 to 8 hours a day on their screens, which is absolutely insane. If you spend 8 hours a day sleeping, that means you're going to be awake for 16 hours a day, and we're on average spending 7 to 8 hours a day, about half of that on our screen. And the studies show that this is actually causing anxiety and depression and loneliness, and they have all spiked since the invention of social media and the modern smartphone. And so on the next slide, we also need to acknowledge that not all social media is bad. It can still help us connect and explore and create and do a lot of wonderful things with other people so much easier than we possibly could. But it's also so easy to slip back in to that doom scrolling loophole that many of us find ourselves spending so much time on without even realizing it. So really just emphasizing at the same time that balance matters. And so the way that Noso tackles this is through an ABC framework. We want you to be aware first of these habits that many of us have that are so deeply rooted in our subconscious. When are you picking up technology? How are you using it? Why are you using it? How is it making you feel? Once you can recognize that, then we want to help spark behavior change. We want to help you practice these healthier tech habits, and then finally do it with a community. Do it with people that make you feel good about yourself, that can share these experiences with you, and honestly make it so much easier to go through this process. And so the next thing that I think is really important to talk about is why this problem exists. You know, why is it a thing in the first place? And what social media companies have figured out is an insanely effective business model that helps them generate profit. And really what it boils down to is the more time you spend on your phone, looking at the next slide, the more profit that they're going to make. The more engaged you are, the more money these companies make. So there's a few things in between too that make this happen is when you spend time on your phone, they're going to be collecting data on you. They're going to be understanding what you're doing, how you're spending your time, who you're friends with, what you're looking at. And all of this data is going to be used to curate a feed for you that is going to make you spend more time on your screen. All they care about is making profit. They just want to make sure that they can collect as much profit as they can, and to do so, get advertising companies to pay them to show their ads. And so, one of the things that they do to make this possible is through the AI-driven algorithm. For me, this was one of the most insane things that would just keep me glued to my screen and really, doom scrolling for hours at a time. And so it's exactly what I was talking about. This AI algorithm is tracking what you watch, what you like, what you share, what you click, who you're interacting with, and comparing it against millions of other users to curate a feed that is going to keep you scrolling. One thing they do that I think is really evil is they might be able to see if you delete a post or something that you shared and recognize that you're feeling insecure and then end up recommending like a weight loss product or makeup or something because they know that you're in your most vulnerable moment. Another research study that I just did, um, I logged in as a 13-year-old on TikTok just as a simulated user, and I tried to simulate signs of anxiety and depression to the AI-driven algorithm. I spent more time watching sad videos, and what I found out is that after 15 minutes, the algorithm started to recommend me suicidal content. Um, and it's just absolutely insane. And so now we're going to look at how this actually impacts everybody's well-being. The first thing is comparison culture. So just as something in day-to-day life, when you're comparing yourself with other people, like I've had this as a problem too. Like I'll compare myself with other people and it makes me feel like I'm not good enough when I see people who are smarter than me or they have more money or whatever it ends up being. And what social media does is it really cranks this to 100. Every single time you go on social media, you're going to be seeing people in their best moments and posting their highlight reels and showing that, like, hey, I'm popular, I'm better than you. And it really just makes people feel like crap. It makes you feel insecure and it pushes unrealistic beauty standards as well. And so, what is this doing to our anxiety and depression? In this graph pulled from the CDC, you can really see around 2010, which is when the intersection between social media and the modern smartphone happened. What happened to people from the age of roughly 15 to 24? You can see that we went from spending about 150 minutes a day down to around 50 minutes a day just in the span of how long we've been on social media. And this is creating so much loneliness and so much isolation to the point where the Surgeon General has just told us that we're in a loneliness crisis right now. And what's happening when you're going on your phone, when you're spending all this time on social media, these companies have figured out that humans have a fundamental need for connection with other people. And when you spend time on social media, it sort of temporarily satisfies that need. However, as soon as you log off and you get off of your phone, you just feel so much more lonely because all of the time you spent was very surface level and you weren't actually creating meaningful connections. And it ultimately has pulled us away from our family and our friends and all of the other people that we want to be around. And so we can start to look at this in terms of the mental health effects. You know, what are the mental health conditions that are happening? So in this same graph, we can see this correlation and causation from 2010, where levels of anxiety have more than doubled since 2010 in undergraduates. This is an undergraduate study. And depression has doubled. And you can see similar trends with ADHD and bipolar and anorexia and substance abuse. And so again, it's recognizing that this technology is both the problem, it's causing these effects, but then the second you log off, it becomes the coping mechanism, you know? It becomes a pacifier where you don't have to worry about all of those things that are going on in the back of your head that you really do need to pay attention to. And then one more graph that I think is just absolutely terrifying and it's really sad is U.S. emergency department room visits for self-harm, and specifically girls between the ages of 10 and 14 has gone up almost 500% since social media and the modern smartphone. It's really disgusting what these companies are getting away with, and it really goes to show that they don't care about our well-being. They don't care about how we flourish as humans. They only care about profit. And it's even more disgusting when you look at how this actually affects how much money these huge tech CEOs have. You know, like Mark Zuckerberg and Elon Musk, they are worth billions of dollars and some of the richest people in the world because they take advantage of us in our most vulnerable moments. So how does this look in terms of screen time? If you are spending 5 hours a day on your screen, and assuming you live to the age of 75, you are going to spend 15 years of your life scrolling on social media. That's 15 years, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 12 months in a year of just you staring at your phone. And that's like you have to consider too that you're going to be sleeping for a third of your life as well. Uh, Another statistic, which I think is really scary too, is if you consider only your free time, people, young people, teenagers and young adults, they're on track to spend 93% of that time scrolling on their phone. Um, and so there is change you can make, you know. And that's where Inoso steps in. If you are sick and tired of scrolling on your phone and doom scrolling and wasting all of this time, and you are sick and tired of being used by these social media companies, then we want to offer you a challenge. So for the entire month of November or just 1 month, we want you to delete all social media apps and just any addictive app for that matter from your phone and experience the benefit. And if that is too daunting, we also offer a shorter detox or a work in progress where you don't have to go all in, but still, just create a little bit of awareness and start to see some of these effects that these social media platforms are really having on us. And so how does this work? When you go and do this movement challenge, we want you to plan ahead. So on the next slide, get together with friends, plan activities, um, schedule events ahead of time because it'll be so much easier when you do this with other people. Instead of just, gripping your hands and sitting in a chair and trying to wait it out, it'll be so much better if you really replace that time that you were spending on your screen with other activities and with other people. And so from there, we want you to delete and detox these apps and set up any app limits or blockers that you can, and then participate in the community that we have built for everyone. We'll share weekly tips and encouragement from the team, and then you can also enter some awesome challenge events as well. And so, just a fair warning, detoxing can be very difficult at first. For many of us, our habits are so deeply rooted in our subconscious that we open these apps without even realizing it. And so the first phase of doing a detox is going to be most likely a withdrawal. You're going to feel super restless, super bored and irritable, and have extremely strong urges to check these apps. However, after a little bit of time, you'll start to adjust and calm down, and cravings still might hit, but they'll become easier to manage. And eventually, you'll experience that breakthrough. Like for me, the breakthrough was seeing all of those problems and mental health issues that I had been carrying on me my entire life disappear. I mean, it was an absolutely life-changing event that is the reason that I'm here right now talking and the reason that I'm developing the Screen Time app, and the reason I'm so passionate about this today. And so, what worked for me? I, during that entire 3 months, discovered a finite list of things that worked very well for me. For example, blocking these distracting apps and also stopping to not expect results overnight. Many of the screen time apps that are out there that you might see, they expect you to just go cold turkey and to expect to go from 7 hours a day to 30 minutes overnight. And it's just simply unrealistic. And so what I figured out worked for me was to gradually lower my screen time. Is to start where I am, to not make any improvement and just first recognize that it's a problem. And once I can establish a little bit of consistency, recognizing it, I'll slowly lower it just by 20 minutes a week or something so that I can focus on building these sustainable habits, but also replacing some of that screen time with other activities. And so for the last year, I have spent putting all of those things into this screen time app, Dopamind. And I really think that it's here to create real change, It's the first app that you can download where it's going to help you get from point A to point B over maybe the span of a month or 2 months, but slowly lowering your screen time so you can take control of it one bit at a time. And so if you scan the QR code right there, it's free to download and you can help me test it out and send feedback and stuff. And anything helps. Um, and so on the next slide, when I got to that point, at the end of my first detox, at the end of the 3 months when I completely got rid of social media, I realized that I had been dependent on my phone and my technology for my entire life. And I had never understood what it was like to truly live independent from it. And I think going through that experience, I consciously understand that everybody deserves the opportunity to understand what that is like. And I know that every single person also has it in them to find it within themselves to get to that point. Um, and so on the next slide, if you're interested in the NoSo detox, you can go to nosonovember.org and see all the tips and tricks and sign up. But yes, thank you guys so much for having me. Thank you, Adil. This is really awesome.
Yep, thank you so much for joining. Like always, we're gonna have our Q&A period. So I'll put the link in the chat. If you guys have questions, you can put them in the chat and I'll read them out. You already have one. So, what helped you realize the problem and move forward from being addicted to your phone?
Um, I think the main thing is like the very first shift that I had was when I was scrolling on Instagram Reels. I ended up seeing this ad for a screen time company. And it was very interesting because it challenged this normalcy of just everyone being on their device all the times. They really highlighted that what's going on is not normal, and these companies really are sucking all of the energy and all of the time that we have for their benefit. And that was the first thing that really sparked that realization of this being an addiction, and this being a problem. Um, yeah, I hope that answers that.
Another question we have is, they said, I know you said you were doing computer science. How does your schoolwork connect with what you're doing in social media? Does it connect?
Yeah, so I've this is my fourth year doing computer science, and the first 2 years it was sort of just like, they teach us how to code, they teach us all the frameworks and all of the theory behind it. But then once I discovered, digital well-being and this passion that I had for helping people stay off their phones and eventually building a screen time app out of it, I figured out how to align the classes that I'm in with what I want to do. So, for example, right now I'm in the senior capstone class, and it's this year-long class that all computer science students have to take. And I ended up pitching my idea to this class, and I have a group of students now who are working on it with me, which is really awesome. And so I get to utilize all of the resources that I have at Boulder to further the development of my app, but also my understanding of the problem. So I'm also in this AI ethics class, and that's where I did the research study on TikTok to see how the algorithm responds to signs of anxiety and signs of depression in users. And so a lot of what I'm doing in school really aligns. Like, of course, there are going to be classes that maybe don't correlate exactly and aren't exactly what I want to be doing. But for the majority of it, I am actually working on things that I really do like to work on. Yeah.
Yep, and that really goes to show how like healthcare doesn't require you to do science, it doesn't require you to do bachelor of science and then med school. You could do computer science, you could do law, you could do anything and still make a difference on people's health and on their well-being, mental health and all that. Another question we have is, if you were able, do you think that making those changes in the laws would create a difference, or do you think the only way forward is by doing these screen time apps?
Um, it's very difficult because I think a lot of these social media companies, they're spending so much time and so much energy and so many of their resources to prevent actual real change the in our laws from happening. So, for example, there have been, laws that have built up that have tried to raise the age that you need to be able to sign up to go on social media. And they have had so much pushback against that to the point where when I downloaded TikTok to do this study, I put my age in as 13, but there was absolutely no verification other than that. And I saw things that were absolutely detrimental to that sort of user's mental health. And I think it's really ridiculous and really disgusting what they're getting away with, and that there isn't any law or preventative measures right now. So I think in the current moment, it really has to come from within. we need to exercise our ability to make change for ourselves first before we expect other people to do it for us, which is sad, but it's the reality of things. And if real change is going to happen, I think it's going to come from us first.
Yep. And one last question. So it says, have you seen like the laws that are happening in Australia? And do you think those sort of one size fit all rules would work, or do you think that it should be more individual? So I guess
Um,
I know I was reading as well, Australia had banned social media for people, I think it was below 18 or 13, one of those. So I guess they're asking regarding that.
I'm not familiar with the exact law, but I think, anything that is recognizing that this is a problem and it's actually affecting younger generation's mental health and it's really having a negative impact. I think any law that puts us in the right direction, that takes a step in the right direction, is going to be beneficial for everyone. And I don't think it's necessarily a one size fits all, but it's moving in the right direction. And maybe it's something that like we need even more strict policies here in the US because it is such a big problem over here. Um, yeah.
Yep. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. Thank you so much, Sol, and to the NoSo team for working with us to give this webinar. Once again, I have put the link to the attendance form in the chat. Make sure that you do the form within an hour before it closes, and we wish you all a very happy rest of your Sunday. Thank you all for joining.